James, how are you today up there in cloudy, rainy Seattle?
Excellent, man. Thanks for having me.
Is it cloudy and rainy?
Actually, today it is.
Okay.
We actually had a number of sunny days in a row, but finally, the clouds have caught up with us. So,
Yeah, it's part of the life in Seattle, right?
yeah, at least winter and springtime. Summers are gorgeous, though. Summers are
Yeah.
awesome. So,
I have a friend who lives up there. He used to be one of our GMs, and he opened his own school in Seattle. So, yeah, I love Seattle. It's one of my favorite cities.
all right. Yeah, awesome.
So, all right, man. So you are in the fitness space, right?
Yeah.
As I look at your website, how to lose fat, build muscle, right?
Oh, yeah. Actually, in the finance space too, it's like kind
Okay.
of a mix,
Oh,
hodgepodge of things. So,
okay.
yeah.
Man, that's even better. So let's start with the journey. Did the journey start in fitness?
Yeah, actually it did. I mean, it's just kind of a funny journey. I mean, I was, you know, growing up, I was a big computer nerd. I taught myself programming
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up I've always in here in the state of Washington,
Okay.
Skagit Valley, kind of known for the tulip fields and stuff, up north of Seattle. And um, yeah, I was just kind of a skinny computer nerd guy. Taught myself programming at a really young age. My whole goal was to, go work for Microsoft, because Microsoft is here in the Seattle area, and I mean, this is like late 1980s, early 90s,
Okay.
so and so then I went away to college and University of Washington in Seattle, and started my major in computer science there and stuff. And then but it was kind of interesting because during the same time, I was such a skinny guy. I was like, oh, I want to add some muscle. I don't like being so skinny and stuff. And so
Mm-hmm.
I got into weight training, and I just got really kind of, I would read the bodybuilding magazines, Muscle and Fitness, and, all those mags. And, at the time there was Muscle Mag International, Robert Kennedy's magazine. And God, what was the other major? Oh, there was Iron Man magazine. And then,
Okay.
God, I don't remember the other one. There
Was
was a,
Men's
there
Health
was,
around yet? Men's Health had to be around.
um, I don't remember. If it was, I didn't read it at the time. I was always reading like more of the hardcore
You
bodybuilding
wanted to get
stuff.
fucking jacked.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly what
that's
it
what you wanted
was.
to get jacked, man. Just let's
Yeah,
own it.
I mean, that's what it was. So, so I would read the bodybuilding magazines and stuff, but the part that always fascinated me the most, because every magazine had like a little like science column, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like, where they talk about certain studies or whatever, and maybe it was me having that computer science background that was like really interested in that stuff. And it was just kind of weird. Like I just started to lose interest in the whole computer science field. And I had a growing interest in the fitness field. And interesting thing is I didn't study as hard as I could have, and I wasn't able to get in the computer science department at University of Washington. It's pretty competitive. Um, so I transferred to Washington State University, which is on the other side of the state, and started computer science there. But by now I had lost so much interest. And the interesting thing is that Washington State, I had friends who were in the exercise science department there, and even one of them was like, "Hey, I can tell you're really interested in this stuff. You should change your major or whatever." And I was at the first, I was like, no, I've already gone too far. It's like, but then finally I just got to the point where I was just feeling so down and so disinterested in what I was doing. And I'd already, I only had maybe a year and a half left of computer science. I completely switched what I was doing. I mean, and the funny thing about exercise science, computer science, there's like no overlapping coursework at all, right? So it's like I was starting school like all over again. And it was actually kind of it was a little bit of a scary decision, because I was turning my back on something that had been a big part of my life for a long time. I mean, like I said, I started programming and stuff when I was, really young. And like, I didn't know what I was going to do in the fitness field. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Like, I didn't want to be a personal trainer, but I was like, but what am I going to do? I didn't know. I just knew that I was interested in this stuff.
Bro, I feel
And
you. I mean, I didn't have to switch my majors in college. I just
yeah,
finished my math degree. But like I got so into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that
yeah,
given a rat's ass about math.
Yeah.
Like I mean, like, I don't even know where my diploma is. I graduated with it. I mean, that thing is, I mean, I hope my mom doesn't listen to this episode, because I think we're still paying the bill. But we're not, but just in general, like, if, she's like, well, what the fuck did I spend that much money for? And, you spent that much money for us to land right where we are right now, Mom. But I totally feel you. I totally feel you in that. I want nothing to do with this.
I know that's the thing too, is because that's what keeps you in it for a while, because it's that sunk cost fallacy, right? You're like, well, I've already put in this much time, I probably should keep going, or I've put in this money, and like, I mean,
you're chasing bad money with good is what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
I'm just so committed that I have to keep putting this money in, and it just keeps becoming more bad money.
Yeah, I know. It's, and so it's like, so I switched my major, and then things started to get a little bit more clarity when, like, I had a good knack for like the science and stuff. And so I would do really well in class, and like, I still didn't know what I wanted to do, but I remember this one class I was in, this one professor, like, he was asking all these questions, and I was actually challenging him on a bunch of stuff. Like I was like, I don't think that's right. And I list off some studies I had read or whatever.
In the
and then he calls me
in the exercise science field.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was actually, I was actually openly in the lecture room. I was openly challenging the instructor.
Okay.
And so then he invited me into his office, and it was actually a great thing, because he was like, you know what? I think you're really smart. I think you should get a graduate degree. You should do your PhD, blah, 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 And so then a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, well, maybe that's the career route I can go. I can do research, I can be a professor. I remember asking him, I was like, well, what about, I can't keep paying for more school. And he's like, dude, you'll get an assistantship with no problem. Your school will be paid for. You don't have to worry about that. Right. And so then I kind of followed that path. I went to grad school. Like I had an assistantship. My school was paid for, whatever. Got my master's. Then decided, okay, I want to do the PhD. Where am I going to do it? Went down to Florida to do my PhD in nutrition down there. And I chose the wrong department and wrong professor and wrong topic. And it became this thing where I didn't care what I was doing. I was not interested in what I was doing. And I just became this lazy ass grad student. Like, I was supposed to be going into the lab to help out in lab and stuff, because that's what they're paying me to do. That's what my assistantship is for. And I wasn't doing it. I was like, waking up at noon every day or whatever, staying up late. I wasn't really studying. And then I finally got kicked out of my lab. I literally got kicked out of my, which was kind of unheard of for me. Like, I'd never been like, I'd always been a really hard worker, right? But obviously that was just a sign that I was not in the right place, right? Because it wasn't like I'm not naturally some lazy person. It was just, I was in the wrong thing. And so, I lost my assistantship and everything. And so then I moved back here to Seattle, and I thought, okay, well, I'll go to the University of Washington, finish my PhD in nutrition in a topic that I'm more interested in. They do a lot of stats and epidemiology and everything. But then when I moved back here, I was like, well, now I got to reestablish my residency in the state, because I had been out of the state for, 2 years or whatever. So I thought, okay, I'll work for a year, reestablish my residency, go back to school or whatever, eventually be a professor, whatever. So I'm still on that career path of being a professor, and then start working at this place in Seattle. Actually, it's in Bellevue, called Pro Club. Pro Sports Club. It's like one of the largest health clubs in the world. And it's run by this cardiovascular surgeon, Dr. Mark DiDomenico. And he's actually one of the guys who helped pioneer open heart surgery. And he, so I just started working there as a personal trainer, thinking that, okay, I'll work here for a year, go back to school. But similar thing though, the CEO was holding this education thing for all the trainers. And so we're all in there, this big auditorium, And of course, he's this, multi-millionaire dude, and he's got, and he's, there at the front, talking to us about diabetes or what, I don't remember exactly what, I think it was a diabetes, but like he pulls out this fucking wad of cash, like huge wad of cash in his hand. He goes, "I've got money here for anyone that can answer my questions." Right. And he had no idea what my background was or whatever. He had no idea, to him, I was just another trainer in the whole audience. Right. So he starts asking these questions, and it's all physiology related stuff that I was really good at. And I'm like, boom, 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 boom. Like I came home with like a huge chunk of like it was over 100.
Yeah, I'm done for the week. I'm done for the year.
I came home with I think I came home with over $100 cash that day because I had answered like all his questions. And so then he calls me into his office one time because he hears about that I'm interested in research and stuff. And he's like, they had this obesity management program for Microsoft employees called 2020. And really successful program, still is. He goes, we have all these people that go through this program. I would love to do research on these people, or at least data, do data stuff on the people that we've got in this program. And he goes, I'd like you to be the guy to run that, and do that stuff, right? And I was like, yeah. And so eventually I just started working there. I never went back to school because I was doing research, doing what I wanted to do. I was being paid for it. And,
why the fuck not?
Yeah. So actually was there for a while. And then there was the, 2009, the downturn in the economy, companies start downsizing and everything. And I ended up losing my job there. Although, I think I would have lost my job anyway because of the downturn, but really what it led to, again, I was always a person that would challenge people, right? The thing about the CEO at this place, though, is that he was very kind of a my way or the highway guy, Now, I was always very good at kind of challenging him in gentle ways that wouldn't like threaten his ego or whatever, right? And well, what was the story here? I remember. So they had Microsoft. They had their MSN Health thing on their, on MSN or whatever. And they wanted us to write a regular blog for them. And I was already writing a regular blog for the 2020 program and for, Pro Club and stuff. And so he's like, he wants me to write this blog. And I'm like, cool, I'm all excited about this. Then I hear he's like, he wants me to write the blog, but basically I'd be a ghostwriter for him. So it's going to be him, his picture, his name, but my writing. And I didn't like that. Right. And so what happened is he comes into my office one day and he, MSN, they had this list of rules that we had to follow to write for them, right? Slams it down on my desk and he goes, "What do you think of them telling us what to do? I don't like them telling us what to do here." Now in my head, I'm thinking, okay, this is my way out, and I thought, yeah, and I said, also, Mark, I'm not sure I feel really comfortable writing under your name. Oh my God, he fucking lost it. Like just went berserk on me. He's like, "What are you talking about? I let you do what you want around here, whatever, blah, blah." Storms out of my office. 5 minutes later, I find out I was fired. Like, it was just like, what?
Right.
And this is 2009. Like, suddenly
everyone
now I'm out
needs
of
a job. Everyone
needs a job, right? Yeah. And so, so that was the time where I actually started my weightology website. I took the downtime to say, hey, I got to start something here, got to do something. So I started the site. I did eventually start getting a job working at Primera, which is like doing analytics for like health insurance.
Okay.
But I still would run weightology on the side. I was kind of
so what is weightology?
So weightology is my website, which I'm still running. Basically, I just deliver like evidence-based like info on building muscle, losing fat. And so at the time which I still have running now, I started a research review. So like every month I cover like the latest studies on getting jacked or getting ripped, basically, but I try to do it in a way that like, where I kind of, do it in a way that you can understand, right?
What's different about you and everybody else? Because I mean, eat right, exercise.
So, well, because me and everything's
simple,
on,
right? Isn't it simple? Just eat right and exercise.
Yeah, but I think what I'm delivering more is the actual like science. Like, so for example, if you're a bodybuilder and you're like, well, how many sets should I do? How frequently should I train or whatever? I'll actually like, so, okay, well, here's studies that show this, studies that show that. And then I try to do it in a way, I give it to you a way that you don't need a science background to understand, right?
So give me an example. I'm just a normal dude, right? I'm Eliot. I'm I'm 41 years old.
Yeah.
I want to lose 15 pounds and I want to get more ripped.
Yeah.
And look, hold on, I'm going to add a caveat to that. I do jujitsu, right? Which is very physically demanding.
Yeah.
And if I lift weights and do jujitsu, I'm sore as fuck. If I just do jujitsu, like, and let me tell you another thing. I love my Peloton, bro. I love my Peloton. Those damn girls motivate me. Right? Like, and that doesn't make me sore. Like I can do that.
Yep.
Talk to your boy.
Yeah. Well, see, for me, I mean, if it's fat loss, then literally here's the thing. Number one predictor of fat loss success is adherence. So, I mean, you just told me you love jujitsu, you love being on your Peloton. I'm like, then fucking stick with it, right? I mean, if that's what you like to do, if that's what you're going to do consistently, then that's what matters, right? Then there's the dietary component, which is separate. But I'm not going to tell someone that they have to lift weights. It certainly helps. Right. It certainly helps because like it obviously helps you maintain your muscle and stuff.
I like to lift weights. I just get so fucking sore, man.
Oh, yeah. And there's ways around that. I mean, there's ways you can just train with a super low volume, right? You can, you don't need to do a ton of sets or whatever. Just train with low volume.
So I don't have to like squat heavy and deadlift heavy.
No. And that's the thing. Like, and I've talked about this in my research review. I've gone over the studies that show that you can even build muscle with lifting light weights, right? Even sets of like 20 reps, as long as you're going to failure, you don't have to be squatting, massive amounts of weight or deadlifting massive amounts of weight. I mean, some people can't even squat or deadlift, whatever, and they may have injury issues or whatever, where they can't even do it. And I'm just here to tell you, you don't have to do it,
Okay.
I mean, it's like, there's more than one way to skin a cat, so it's like.
As I look at your cat in the background.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even notice him.
Other side. What shoulder is that? Your left shoulder.
So he's hanging out there.
So that's where you help people. Do you have personal clients you work with? Like, how do you monetize that business?
I used to coach clients for a while. I'm not really I just have one client now. He's an IFBB pro bodybuilder. He's my only client that I have. But I used to have coaching clients and stuff for a while, but now my main thing for the Weightology is just my research review. So It's subscription based. I have, people subscribe, they pay a monthly fee, and then we review like maybe 6 to 8 studies in the fitness field per month. And I've brought on other writers now. It used to just be me writing all the reviews.
So it's more nerdy type people that like into research
it's nerdy type stuff. But even if you're just like you don't necessarily have to be a total nerd, but if you're just like, you're like, you know what, I just want to, I hear so much conflicting information. Like I want to know what's the real.
Bro, it's 2022.
Yeah.
So I wear a mask?
What's the real deal here, right?
Do I wear a mask? Do I not wear a mask? Do I get vaccinated? Do I not get vaccinated? Did Trump steal the election? Did Trump not steal the election? Is it going to snow tomorrow? It's 2022, bro. What's my name? Come on, man. What's real information?
Well, at least I go by that's the thing. I mean, at least I'll go, at least people who want stuff that's been published in research and stuff, or I always call it the weight of the evidence, right? There's a term we have in the evidence-based fitness industry. What's the weight of the evidence? So perfect example is like, if there's 10 studies that have on a certain thing,
right,
and 9 of those studies show one thing and one shows the opposite, I'm going to tell you, okay, let's go with what the 9 studies show.
Why is this so hard for people? Why is this so hard for people? Because this is our problem. Because there's this word research, like that you keep using here, right? You do research, but you actually do research.
Yeah.
When I want to go, let's just use the COVID thing. what is blah, blah, blah. What are the statistics of COVID? And then I just look them up. No, that's not research.
Yeah.
Like what? Like that's just me Googling. Like there's a difference between Googling something and researching something. Can you talk about this a little bit? Because it drives me insane. I did the research. No, you fucking didn't. I know. You read an article.
Yeah. And see, that's the thing. It's like, actual, like when I talk about research, I'm talking about scientists who are in labs or whatever. They're literally, collecting data, publishing data in journals, right? Those journals are peer reviewed. So other scientists like review the article before it gets published and everything. Literally these people are spending their lives doing this work. Okay. That's research, where literally you are an expert, like you literally know everything about this one topic. Going on Google and looking something up doesn't make you like,
you didn't do any research.
The problem with doing that is, well, there's a number of problems with it. Number one, you don't have the background to be able to differentiate what's good and what's bad information. You just don't. Most of us don't. Like if someone asked me to Google, stuff on,
bro, I'll send you a jiu-jitsu website where they teach like shit. Where they teach absolute dog shit, and you'll be like, yo, that was badass.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I have no background in jiu-jitsu. I have no clue.
Right.
But yeah, I could probably Google or something and find something on jiu-jitsu. Oh, this looks pretty good, right? Yet I have no background. I can't really truly know whether that's good or bad information, right? But the problem is the internet makes everyone feel like they're experts on things when they're clearly not, right? So yeah, Googling things is not research, and
it's another weird thing that we have going on too, in the sense of like, to be an expert in a field, right? Like, yeah, if you are an expert in, if you're a doctor and you're an ER doc, you might be the best ER doc in the world, but you're not an expert in virology, or you're not an expert in epidemiology, or you're not an expert in exercise science. Yeah. Right. You understand it. You get it. Right. You have more of a knowledge than like I do.
Yeah.
But I still shouldn't really listen to you. I should listen to you if I'm having a fucking heart attack and I need to go to I go to the ER. That's when I should listen to you.
I know. Right? Exactly. It's just like, it's like me. I'm not a plumber, right? My plumber comes to my house, chances are he's going to know way more about plumbing, and I'm not going to sit here and tell him, no, this is actually the problem here, sir. And I have no clue what I'm talking about. I
Googled it, man. I Googled it. This is what Google said. We're in a weird world.
It's just like somebody told me there's actually a book out there called, and I haven't read it, but it's called The Death of Expertise, where it's just like,
because we're all an expert.
Yeah.
We're all an expert. It does not matter. It really doesn't matter. And all right, I'm gonna crush him for a second. Maybe this will get me some clickbait, like Joe Rogan, for example. I'm a Joe Rogan fan. I do not agree with what he's doing right now. He has a massive platform, and he is very biased with what he's doing, and that's okay, but he's getting everyone to listen to him.
Yeah, well, actually, it's funny. I agree with you at that. Because I debated with someone on, I try to avoid like online debates and stuff, because it's just like, it's one of those things where you spend all this time doing it and then you just end up pissed off after it's all done. But I remember just one thing I mentioned to him was the famous Spider-Man line, with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, he's got this massive platform and he's trying to say, oh, I'm just trying to start a conversation or trying to show balance. And there's something in the world that's called false balance, right? Where, so for example, if I have a show, let's say a really popular show, and I bring on some guy that thinks the earth is flat on there, right? And I create this impression that there's legitimacy to this viewpoint that the earth is flat. And so I have a round earther and a flat earther at the same time. The audience might get this idea that, oh, maybe there's this kind of controversy.
Yeah, maybe it's a thing.
Maybe it's a thing, even though literally like
It's not a
99.99.
fucking thing. No, more than
It's not-
98.9.
I
You're
know.
more likely to die of COVID than the earth is flat.
I know. But see, and that's the point. It's like that's called false balance, where you're creating this image that there's, that there's this controversy, or that we need to have all these balanced viewpoints, when, this is something where it's like, no, right?
We don't. We don't.
There's
We don't. No. You can find the problem with, I think, what like Rogan is doing right now, and he used to be amazing at calling out people on their bullshit. For example, like I think one of his best podcasts was with John Jones, the fighter, when he was like, John, what the fuck are you? No, that's not true, John. And he literally said it to him. But for example, with the Malone that Rogan had, Dr. Malone, Robert Malone, the guy said on the podcast that he basically invented the mRNA vaccine. That just isn't true.
Yeah.
Like that's
and
just
plus
not true.
Malone was like pushing a bunch of conspiracy bullshit too.
But even outside of that, he got to push conspiracy bullshit because he said, I invented this. I am the expert.
Yeah.
Well, okay, if that were true, if you were the expert, well, then maybe you get more of a voice, like for sure, because you're the expert. But he's not. That's not true. He didn't do that, right? He didn't create the mRNA vaccine. So he had something to do with mRNA vaccines.
Yeah.
But he is not the creator of that. So now, like, your stock comes way down.
Yeah.
Right? Like, hey, did you know I was a world champion in fighting?
No, I did not know.
True. In a very, very small local show, I was their world champion. I just say I was a world champion. You just go, yo, goddamn, you're the UFC champ, right? And no, I'm not. So like, but we get to say these things, and we're like, because we want to hear what they have to say and create balance. Man, it must be very hard for you. How do you deal with that in your field? Because, dude, I can just go on the internet and fucking Google that shit.
Oh my God, it's so frustrating. I mean, that's one of the things that also kind of led me into the evidence-based fitness space, because like for a long time, I just wanted to fight bullshit, right? And there's that saying out there that the amount of effort that it takes to fight bullshit is like 100 times more than the effort it takes to create bullshit or whatever.
Right.
It's like, I'm kind of paraphrasing. I've seen that quote out there.
Oh yeah, create bullshit is easy. Fucking TikTok, bro.
So that's always kind of motivated me to kind of, I can't stand bullshit. It's like I'm the same way in the finance and trading world. There's a lot of bullshit there too. Like I just want stuff that's real, that's based on data, and I'm not saying I'm an expert on everything.
Right. So how do you do that? Like give the audience something there, right? Like, so how do you find what's real? Like you gave one really good nugget in the sense of like, okay, look, if there's 10 peer-reviewed articles and 9 say one thing that they're agreeing and 1 says the other, man, you go with the 9.
Yeah.
Right? You go with the 9. That's simple. Right.
So,
but go ahead. How do you do it?
Oh yeah, so I would say it probably depends, but if it's something that you have no background in, then I think you need to seek out experts in that field. And what I mean by experts is like people who are literally like, let's say, publishing research in that field, right? Not just some random doctor or whatever, but someone who's going to have a really good knowledge of what the body of evidence actually says, right? And then if you can find multiple experts that have that's a similar background, if they're all kind of saying the same thing, then you can probably reasonably conclude that that's probably where the weight of the evidence lies. You don't necessarily have to go digging into PubMed and digging up all these studies, because a lot of people don't know how to do that. And even if they know how to do a PubMed search, they probably don't really know what they're looking for.
Couldn't even tell you what that meant.
Yeah. So PubMed is it's like the Google of.
It's okay. I don't want to know. It's okay. Neither does anybody else. We're not going to do it. Right. So it's cool, man.
So, but anyway, it's just like, so I'd say that's one way to try to evaluate, okay, try to find the true experts who are literally spending their time studying this stuff. And then if you can find multiple experts, because sometimes there is a legit disagreement even among experts in certain things, right? And so if you see a legitimate disagreement among experts who all have a similar background and knowledge or
Right.
whatever, then you can probably reasonably conclude, okay, we're kind of uncertain on this, right?
Right.
But
and that's okay.
Yeah, and that's okay. That's the thing. That's how science works, right?
Right.
Science, this is what I try to tell people. Conclusions in science are never 100%. They're all based on probabilities, right? And it's just based on how much data do you have. Like, and Lane Norton made a great analogy one time. He said, there's data that I might bet, let's say, my lower leg on, right? There's data where I might bet my entire leg on. Then there's data I might bet my whole body on, right? Just using that analogy, like, what's the certainty level, right? And the closer you can get to 100, you never get to 100%. There's no such thing. But you certainly get to 99.99 or whatever, to the point where you can basically call it 100% certain. But a lot of people are very uncomfortable with the concept of uncertainty. And one thing I'd love for your listeners to take away with is be comfortable with uncertainty. Be comfortable with saying, I don't know, or like, we don't know.
We don't know.
Right? Yeah.
Right. We don't know.
Like, I haven't, if I'm always 100% honest with people, if someone gives me some question about in the fitness space or whatever, and I'm familiar with the research on it, I'll just say, you know what? I'll say, I don't know, or I'll say, you know what? There's some studies that kind of are leaning this way. There's this, and I'll give them some kind of, it'll sound like a wishy-washy answer, but I'm just showing the truth of what
Look, so there's, I have a lot of jiu-jitsu listeners, so I'm going to give a jiu-jitsu analogy.
Yeah.
I am teaching this one style of it's called passing the guard, right? Getting around to put your partner's legs. You're on top, you have to get around their legs, right? And that's a major skill. In the jiu-jitsu fight, just so you have some understanding, if you and I are even, most of the time in the fight is spent between me, it's called your guard, me passing your guard or you passing my guard. If I'm mounted on top of you trying to choke you out the whole time, I'm way better than you, right?
Yeah.
And vice versa. If you're mounted on top of me, then you're way better than me, right? But I'm working on this one style, and there's two ways to do it. It's called long arm, short arm, or hands in the middle, okay, of this particular style. I've only studied long arm, short arm. I haven't, the research, the information from all the people who do in the middle is getting ready to come out right now, like this week. So as I'm teaching it, I'm saying, guys, look, there's two styles. I'm really good at this long arm, short arm, but I'm leaving the door open to watch this hands in the middle style, because I'm not saying it's bad. I just haven't seen the benefits of it yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So can we just wait a minute as we go through this? I still want to teach this to you because this shit works really well for me, but I'm going to come back and I might change my mind a little.
But that's the other thing. You just hit on something that I think, people need to be comfortable with the idea of changing your mind if the data tells you to change your mind. I'm just telling you right now, in the fitness field, I've changed my mind on a number of things many times when the data said I needed to change my mind.
Even when you were dead wrong, like you had to do a 180 maybe.
Oh yeah. So perfect example where I was that, I mentioned how I went down to Florida. I did some research down there on carbs and fat. I actually published the research in a journal, right? At the time, my research supported the idea that low carb diets would kind of give you a fat loss benefit independent of the calorie intake, right? Well, over time, I started to learn about the flaws in my own research, because I just got, I learned more about what type of research I did. It was called meta-analysis, all this stuff. It's not important. And I also and more studies started to come out that started to show that I was actually wrong at the time. And I actually wrote a blog post, I remember, on my site, a long time ago, saying that, basically saying, I no longer consider the results of my own study, my study that I published, I no longer consider it reliable, right? And here's the reasons why. I completely changed my mind because the data told me I was originally wrong. And I have no problem saying I was wrong. It's not a big, I think people have this ego attached to being right or wrong. You're the
devil. How could you sell you're dead to me. You told me something and you're wrong. You're dead to me.
Well, and that's the thing, is like, I remember used to see this in politics. I remember the 2004 election when it was, John Kerry versus George Bush, and John Kerry got labeled as a flip-flopper because you could go back and find times where he was saying the opposite of what he had said before.
Okay.
And now sometimes in politics, that's just,
Sure, politics is a bad one, but go ahead.
Politics is a bad one. But what I want to illustrate that changing your mind is not necessarily it's not necessarily a bad thing to flip flop if you're doing it because you've got new evidence to show you were wrong, right?
We don't allow for that right now.
I flip flopped on things in the past because data told me that I was, that's why I say, conclusions in science, if you're going to be a scientist about something, you got to be open to the possibility that there may be new data that could kind of turn things around, right?
Look, I'll be super honest with COVID. I flip flopped, right? Like for the first month, you sat in your fucking house. You didn't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Who did? Nobody, right? Like I can remember having block parties where we're like way far away from each other, right? Like I lived in a cul-de-sac. We'd sit outside, don't go fucking near me, don't touch me, all of that. Well, it turned out to be that we're gonna. So okay, we started hanging out, and I flip flopped.
Yeah, well, I also remember I even flip flopped on COVID, because I remember when you started first hearing about it, right? It hadn't really hit the U.S. in a major way yet, right? It was still China, and it was just starting to hit Italy at the time.
Right.
At the time, I was thinking, it's probably just going to be like a bad seasonal flu. That's what I thought it would be, right? And I even was like, Anthony Fauci actually had an editorial in the American Journal or the New England Journal of Medicine at the time, and he was thinking the same thing, right? At the time, that was probably what it was going to be like. Well, it became very clear to me really fast when I actually saw like the frigging body bags being piled up in Italy and like all that stuff going on. And then I started to understand the concept of exponential growth of a virus, right? Anything,
right.
The reproductive rate. I was like, oh my God, I'm actually wrong about this. This is actually could get much worse.
Right, so we flip flopped twice. Yeah, I think you're right. I think I flip flopped with you too. I was like, it's fucking nothing. Oh shit.
Yeah, and so I flip flopped on that, and even it's funny because people look at Fauci and say, oh, they'll say they'll go back in the past where he said one thing, and then they'll go later where he said something else. I'm like, he's just interpreting whatever data they had at the time, right?
It's so hard for people, man. Like I'm not going to defend the guy because I haven't paid too much attention of what he said.
I actually haven't paid a lot of attention to him either, but I've seen people's criticisms of him, and I'm like, but a lot of those criticisms stem from people misunderstanding how science works. Like a lot of scientists didn't know what was going on with COVID for a while. Like they've had to collect data over time and say, okay, and for a while we didn't really know that it was airborne, right? Everyone was like all about disinfecting surfaces and all this stuff.
Sure, we're wearing gloves and not touching anything and spraying down.
Everyone thought that was it, and then finally they discovered, well, no, it's in your your breath. It's like it's airborne, right? So it's like that's how science works. You got to collect the data, and sometimes it takes time. And the more data, so it,
it's a tough spot we're in. Getting back towards and it's a tough spot for you because you're a researcher, right? And I kind of wanted to go in this subject because I think it's a very important subject for all of us, right? Like just take a step back, take a like for myself on a personal level, I like to say, like, take a 5-second breath. The 5-second breath might have to be a month or two as far as in like research, or it might, like let some things pan out a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. Let some things pan out a little bit so that we can see what to do. Right. So that we can see what to do. It's a hard thing for us because, we are on this 24-hour news cycle where it's everything's breaking news. I don't know if but like the car flipped over that had the cows in them in Wyoming, and it's breaking fucking news. Right. It's just not right. It's just not great. It doesn't affect us like that. So, but anyway, man, you're a busy guy. You have a life, you have things to do. Why is it that one, you would take time getting on, going back to Joe Rogan? I'm not going to make you famous. I don't. You probably won't get one subscriber to your website because of me or doing this podcast. So what the fuck, man? Why waste your 45 minutes to an hour?
You know what? I like talking to people about some of the stuff, especially if it's if people were to listen to some of my other podcasts, I usually, and I was telling you earlier, a lot of times I get asked the same questions about people that know, my fitness background. So they'll ask me about, oh, what does the research on volume say? Or what does this research on NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and all this stuff, and whatever. And I get literally asked the same fucking questions, like literally every podcast I've been on, not everyone, but a lot of them. And so with you, it was like an opportunity to talk about something different, and also just get it out there to people that, that whatever path you take in life, a lot of times it's not going to work out how you plan. I mean, if you had told me years ago that I would be running my own website and then I'd be a professional day trader and, doing those two things, I would have been like, I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? I'm going to be a professor, right? That's never going to happen, right? So it's one of those things where it's kind of interesting to actually show people like the different forks that your life path can take, and every fork can actually be an opportunity, right? Like I said, I told you how I lost my job at Pro Club, right? That became an opportunity for me. I took that time to actually start my weightology site, right? That was also the time where I started, trading more and stuff, so learning more about that. So it's like, sometimes I think it also shows you that adversity, you can take adversity and like turn it into opportunity, which I think is something really important to share with people.
Everything in your life happens for you, not to you.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it doesn't happen, there's got to be a for. I really like that phrase. As you think about what it is, like, I believe everyone has a unique power. Okay. You don't necessarily get rich on it. You don't get famous on it. But it's that thing, right? It's that thing that balances your altruism and your narcissism. I believe your altruism and your narcissism must balance.
Yeah.
What is that power for you? What is that thing that makes James amazing?
To me, it's like, it's my ability to analyze and detect bullshit.
Okay.
And then what I like to do is basically, I just want people to know that, what, when I hear James, like, he's real, right? Like he's not going to bullshit me on something. He's not going to overpromise this, or, it's just like, I at least know that I'm going to get a 100% honesty from him, and I think that's where my benefit is. I'm really good at analyzing stuff and then kind of giving you like what I would consider a realistic, the real deal on something.
How'd you get there? What was that process like for you?
That was one thing that, I've always been an analytical person. So, but it's something but I don't want to say that I was just, I guess I'll put it this way. In some ways, I want to say I was born with it, but at the same time, I also cultivated it, right? So it's not like, critical thinking, right?
Look, Michael Jordan was born with athletic gifts. He had to fucking practice.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, again, like, I told you I was a nerd going through school. I was always in these gifted programs or whatever. So I did have a natural ability, right? In terms of my brain, right? I had a natural ability, but no matter what, I still cultivated it over time. And I would say, everyone's got some unique talent, but you still have to cultivate it over time. You can't, like I said, Michael Jordan would have been, he still had to practice his ass off to become who he was, right? And so you still have to cultivate it. And like I said, now I'm a much better critical thinker than I was even, I want to say 2 years ago, right? Because I'm constantly cultivating that.
You're working on the skill.
I think you got to, it's a journey that you got to, don't ever assume you know everything. The interesting thing with me is like, I've always felt like the more I've learned, the less you actually realize that you don't know,
it's such a crazy thing, right?
Yeah.
Such a crazy thing.
Yeah.
I really liked what you said. I appreciate you coming on the podcast because, and I hope it was good for you in the sense of, I could care less really about what any individual does.
Yeah.
Right. And then we talked about this offline a little bit, like not care less in the fact of like, oh yeah, it's cool. Right. It has to interest me to have you come on the podcast, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. But I want to hear more about the journey. how did you get from A to B? Because that's the replicable skill. Somebody listens and grabs and goes, oh, okay, wait a minute, I really resonated with James. And then James goes, let me listen to really what he did a little bit. That's the key. Like, whether it's lifting weights or planting plants, like a gardener, right? Like it doesn't fucking matter, and everyone gets wrapped up into this, success and fame and a million likes on Instagram and or whatever it is. And it's just not that. So I appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much. Tell everyone where they can, if they want more about you, weightology, all that stuff, tell them where they can find all that.
So I got actually 3 different sites. So if you're interested in the fitness related stuff, you can go to weightology.net, weighttollogy.net.
Okay.
I've got a research review and stuff there, and I've got tons of free content too, like articles and stuff on. So if you're interested in getting jacked, losing fat or whatever, you can find my stuff there. If you're interested in the markets, like I said, I'm a professional day trader too. I have a site called stockwonk.com, STOCKWONK. I have some articles, people that are, I actually try to steer people away from day trading. It's probably one of the fucking hardest things you'll ever do. Like, but it's like
a job. You got to realize it's a job.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. Like, most people get into it thinking that you're going to get rich quick. And I'm like, I'm telling you right now, it took me many years to get to the point where I'm at now, where I can be consistently profitable. Right. It's not, one study showed that, less than 1% of traders actually consistently make money, and so if you want to get in that less than 1%, you be prepared for many years of hardship, but people that are interested in that stuff, that's my site, stockwonk.com. And then we have a third site called fitprofinancial.com, which is another friend of mine. That's a site more related to like just general finance and investing, saving your money, just more basic stuff like that. But
All right. Thanks, man. Well, guys, as always, don't go out in the world and try to be James. James has his own unique power, his own unique gift. Don't go out in the world and try to be Eliot. I have my own unique thing. Go out in the world and find your own power.